Welcome to Wealth of Words, where we explore the depths of thought-provoking books that shape our understanding of the world. I'm Richard, your co-host for today.
And I'm Isabella. Together we'll be your guides through today's literary journey.
Today we're diving into The World for Sale by Javier Blas and Jack Farchi. This book takes us into the often hidden world of global commodity traders. The people who control the flow of things like oil, metals, and even the food we eat. Before we get started, we'd love for you to hit that follow button and let us know what you think. Your feedback helps us make Wealth of Words even better.
It really does. Now, this book dives into a world of power and influence where a handful of individuals can impact economies and shape history from behind the scenes. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me was just how much these commodity traders thrive in chaos. The book talks about Marc Rich, the founder of Glencore, who made deals with anyone regardless of the political climate.
That's right. He traded with Iran during U.S. sanctions and even with South Africa during apartheid. He saw every conflict as a market opportunity, a chance to exploit inefficiencies and gain access to resources that others wouldn't touch.
So let's unpack this idea of opportunity and chaos. The book lays out 4 historical waves that really empowered these traders. It starts with the nationalization of oil in the Middle East in the 1970s. That really shook things up.
It did. It broke the grip of the big oil companies and created space for independent traders to step in. Imagine you're a trader back then. Suddenly you have a chance to negotiate directly with governments and secure access to vast reserves of oil. It was a game changer.
Then you had the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Think about the ripple effects of that. Vast new markets open up for oil, metals, food. It's a trader's dream.
Absolutely. These traders had access to resource-rich countries at incredibly favorable prices. It was like a gold rush, but for commodities.
And then, of course, you have the rise of China in the early 2000s. This created this insatiable demand for commodities, especially copper. The book points out that by 2010, nearly half of the world's copper production was going to China.
That's a staggering statistic. Imagine the foresight to anticipate that kind of demand. You'd be in a powerful position, to say the least. And the traders who saw this coming early on were able to capitalize on it immensely.
The final wave the book highlights is the financialization of the global economy, which allowed traders to use borrowed money, a lot of it, to make even bigger bets, increasing both their profits and their influence exponentially.
It's a high-stakes game for sure. So we've got these traders operating in a world of constant change and uncertainty. They have to be incredibly strategic to succeed.
And a big part of that is networking. This book really emphasizes the importance of personal relationships in the commodity trading world.
You can't just rely on market knowledge. It's about knowing the right people, building trust, and cultivating relationships with officials and business leaders all over the world. It's those connections that open doors and create opportunities.
The book gives the example of Ludwig Jesselson of Philip Brothers, who built a global network of supply deals. He famously said that political matters are not business, meaning he was willing to deal with anyone, regardless of their ideology.
It's a fascinating insight into how these traders navigate complex geopolitical landscapes. They operate in a world where political alliances shift and allegiances change, but they have to maintain their focus on securing the resources they need.
And it's not just about who you know, it's about what you know. Information is power, and commodity traders have historically developed incredibly sophisticated intelligence networks to gain an edge.
Oh, absolutely. They were gathering information that sometimes rivaled what government agencies had. They understood that having the right information at the right time was crucial to making the right trades, especially in a volatile market.
Like in 1956 during the Suez Crisis, Cargill traders were able to anticipate the impact of the canal closure and bet on a surge in shipping rates. They profited handsomely because they understood the political ramifications of the crisis before most others did.
They knew that closing the canal would disrupt global trade flows, forcing ships to take longer routes and driving up shipping costs. That's the kind of foresight that sets successful traders apart.
Now, speaking of making bold moves, we have to talk about speculation. While it's often seen as a controversial aspect of commodity trading, this book argues that it plays a significant role in generating profits.
And it's not just about gambling. It's about using their deep understanding of markets and global trends to make calculated bets. Of course, there are risks involved, but the potential rewards can be enormous.
Like in 2008 during the global financial crisis, Cargill made a massive bet against oil and freight prices, correctly predicting a sharp decline in global demand. That one move resulted in a billion-dollar profit.
That's a prime example of how strategic speculation, backed by in-depth knowledge and analysis, can pay off big time. It also highlights the scale at which these traders operate. $1 billion profit on a single trade is simply mind-boggling.
So to recap what we've learned so far from the world for sale, a small group of powerful individuals controls the flow of essential resources, often capitalizing on global shifts and market volatility.
We've also seen how vital personal relationships and information networks are in this business. It's a world built on connections and intelligence where knowing the right people and having access to timely information can make all the difference.
And finally, we've explored the role of speculation, which can be both incredibly lucrative and undeniably controversial. It requires a deep understanding of global trends and the willingness to take calculated risks. We'll be back with part 2 shortly, where we'll delve deeper into the ethical considerations and the impact of technology on commodity trading. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Wealth of Words. We're continuing our journey through the world for sale, exploring the fascinating and sometimes unsettling world of commodity trading. Last time we talked about how these traders thrive in chaos, making huge profits from global shifts.
We also touched on the importance of networking and intelligence gathering in this business. It's a high-stakes game where information is power, and knowing the right people can open doors to incredible opportunities.
You know, one thing that really struck me as I was reading this was the question of ethics. I mean, these traders often deal with regimes or individuals who are, let's say, less than savory. Is profit truly the only thing that matters to them?
Well, the book presents a complex picture. It acknowledges that traders often operate in morally gray areas. They are by nature deal makers who prioritize access to markets and resources above all else. This can sometimes lead them into partnerships that others might find objectionable.
Like the book's example of Marc Rich. He was indicted in the U.S. for tax evasion and trading with Iran during the hostage crisis.
Exactly. He ended up fleeing to Switzerland and continued building his business empire despite being a fugitive in the eyes of many. It's a stark example of how the pursuit of profit can clash with ethical considerations.
And it makes you wonder, is it possible to be successful in this business without compromising your values? The book doesn't offer any easy answers, but it does raise some important questions.
It definitely does. Another concern the book tackles is the potential for market manipulation. I mean, these traders have so much influence. Couldn't they easily inflate prices or create artificial shortages to boost their own profits?
That's a scary thought. It feels like they could really hold the world hostage with their control over essential resources.
It's a valid concern, and the book addresses it head on. While there have been instances where traders were accused of manipulating markets, the authors argue that most operate within the bounds of the law. They recognize that long-term success depends on maintaining a certain level of market integrity.
It makes sense. If they constantly rigged the system, eventually people would stop trusting them and the whole market would collapse.
Right. But even if we assume they're playing by the rules, there's still the environmental impact to consider. We're talking about extracting and transporting vast quantities of oil, metals, and other resources. That can't be good for the planet.
Yeah, the book definitely doesn't shy away from the environmental consequences of commodity trading. They acknowledge the industry's contribution to deforestation, pollution, and climate change.
But they also highlight a growing awareness within the industry of the need for sustainable practices. More and more trading firms are investing in renewable energy and adopting more environmentally responsible approaches.
So it seems like there's a shift happening, a recognition that profit and sustainability don't have to be mutually exclusive. It sounds like they're realizing that in the long run, their success depends on preserving the planet's resources.
That's a key takeaway for sure. And it's not just about the traders themselves. Consumers also have a role to play. We need to be more conscious of where our products come from and demand more transparency and accountability from the companies we support.
Absolutely. We have the power to influence the market with our choices. By supporting businesses that prioritize sustainability and ethical practices, we can push the entire industry in a more responsible direction.
The book really makes you think about the impact of your everyday decisions. Like when you're at the grocery store buying coffee or chocolate, those commodities have traveled a long way, and there's a whole network of traders and producers behind them.
It's like lifting the veil on a hidden world,
Hmm.
right? Suddenly you see the connections between global markets in your own life. And it makes you realize that you're not just a passive consumer, you have agency.
Exactly. You can vote with your wallet and support the businesses that align with your values. That's a powerful tool for change.
Now, before we wrap up this part, I want to touch on another fascinating aspect of the book, the role of technology in the evolution of commodity trading. It's crazy to think how much things have changed over the years.
The book does a great job of tracing those technological advancements from the early days of telegraphs and telex machines to the rise of the internet and big data.
It's mind-blowing how technology has both empowered traders and leveled the playing field in some ways. In the past, having access to information was a key advantage. Traders built these elaborate intelligence networks and spent fortunes on gathering intel.
But now with the internet and the sheer volume of data available online, a lot of that information is more readily accessible. It's a game changer.
The book talks about how new technologies like satellite imagery and artificial intelligence are being used to monitor crop yields, track the movement of ships, and even predict market trends.
It's incredible. They can literally see the world in a new way, gathering real-time data that informs their trading decisions. It's like having a crystal ball that shows you what's happening in every corner of the globe.
But it also raises some interesting questions about privacy and the potential for misuse of this data. It's a lot of power in the hands of a few.
Definitely. And it brings us to a crucial question for the future of commodity trading. How will these technological advancements shape the industry and its impact on the world? It's something we'll explore in part 3, where we'll delve into the future of this fascinating and often misunderstood world.
Welcome back to Wealth of Words. It's time to wrap up our look at the world for sale by looking ahead at the future of commodity trading. So far, we've explored how traders have capitalized on global shifts and technological advancements.
We've also touched upon the ethical dilemmas they face and the environmental impact of their actions. It's been quite a journey.
One of the big takeaways from the book is that sustainability is becoming increasingly important in this industry. It's not just a buzzword anymore.
It's not. As consumers demand more ethical and environmentally responsible practices, businesses are realizing that sustainability isn't just good for the planet, it's good for their bottom line.
It's like we were talking about earlier. Consumers have a lot more power than they realize. When we choose to support companies that align with our values, we can drive real change.
Absolutely. And the book points out that many commodity trading firms are already shifting towards investing in renewable energy, reducing their carbon footprints, and adopting more ethical sourcing practices.
It's encouraging to see that shift happening, and technology is playing a big role in this transformation too.
That's right. Advancements like artificial intelligence and blockchain are changing the way commodities are traded, tracked, and managed. They're bringing more transparency and efficiency to the market.
And you know what else is interesting? The book suggests that technology could actually empower smaller players to enter the market. Traditionally, it's been dominated by these huge multinational corporations, but that might be changing.
It makes sense. In the past, you needed massive resources and infrastructure to compete in this industry. But now, with the right technology, smaller, more agile companies can access the information and tools they need to play on a global scale.
So we might see a more diverse and competitive landscape emerging, which could ultimately benefit consumers. More competition usually means lower prices and more choices, right?
Exactly. Now, another fascinating trend the book highlights is the rise of new commodity superpowers. We often think of the West as being the dominant force in this industry, but that's shifting.
Yeah, it's interesting to consider how countries like China and India are playing an increasingly significant role in the global commodity market. They're not just consuming commodities anymore. They're investing in production and infrastructure all over the world.
And that's reshaping global trade flows and creating new centers of influence. It's a dynamic and evolving landscape.
It feels like we're at a tipping point. The old rules are changing, and the players who adapt to these new dynamics will be the ones who shape the future of commodity trading.
It's an exciting time to be following this industry. It's full of challenges, but it's also full of opportunities.
So what does all of this mean for us, the everyday consumer? The world for sale really encourages us to think critically about the products we buy, the companies we support, and the global forces that shape our lives.
We're all part of this interconnected system, whether we realize it or not. Even if you never buy or sell a commodity directly, these markets have a huge impact on your life.
I mean, think about it. The price of your morning coffee, the cost of filling up your gas tank, the materials used to build your house, all of those things are influenced by commodity markets.
It's fascinating how something that seems so distant actually touches every aspect of our lives. And understanding how these markets work empowers us to make more informed choices.
We can choose to support businesses that are working towards a more sustainable future. We can advocate for greater transparency and accountability in the supply chains of the products we consume. We have more power than we think.
Absolutely. And that's what makes The World for Sale such a thought-provoking read. It sheds light on a world that most of us know very little about, but that impacts us all profoundly.
It's a book that stays with you long after you finish it, prompting you to question your assumptions and see the world in a new way.
It certainly does. And that wraps up our exploration of The World for Sale. We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and sparked your curiosity about the world of commodity trading.
We'd like to thank you for joining us on Wealth of Words. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that follow button and leave us a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And be sure to check back next week for another deep dive into a fascinating book that will expand your understanding of the world. Until then, keep exploring.